that lines are parallel. Okay? So, yesterday we were talking about, given parallel lines, what relationships do we have? Now we're doing the opposite of it. Okay? Feel free to abbreviate these like I did up here on the board, or if you want to write the full words, feel free to write the full words. So our first one is the corresponding angles converse postulate. You can either write exactly what I have on the board, or if you want to do the abbreviated version, which is to the right of the board, feel free to do that. It's your notes on the right side of the board. So your corresponding angles converse postulate says, if corresponding angles are congruent, then the lines are parallel. So if corresponding angles are congruent, then we end up with parallel lines. So just like what you did in your homework, just like we did in class yesterday, the work's going to be the same. It's just now our if-then statements are going to be different. So look at the diagram. Do we have corresponding angles with the 3x plus 5 and the 65?
Yeah, of course. No.
Yes.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, because it's upper right, right?
Yeah.
Here, this is in the upper right, that's in the upper right.
Yeah.
So they're in corresponding parts.
You're not highlighting the right thing, though.
So if corresponding angles are congruent, then my lines will be parallel. So congruent means we're going to set those two expressions equal to each other. Solve it for x. Subtracting 5 gets us 3x equals 60. Dividing by 3 gets us x is equal to 20. That gets you 2 out of the 4 points.
Oh, so that's going to be on the quiz?
Yeah. That'll get you 2 out of the 4 points. The other 2 points are going to be justifying it by stating your theorem. So which theorem should we say?
The second one.
Now you've got 2 options. You've got the statements from yesterday. You've got the statement from today. You need to pay close attention to the directions. It's saying find the value of x that makes them parallel. So that means your conclusion should be the parallel part.
Yeah.
Not the hypothesis being the parallel part. Okay, and that's where you're going to maybe get some points off. Like you might get 1 off because you're putting that one over there instead of the one that we're doing today. You've got the corresponding angles part correct.
It's going to be in different sections on the quiz, or you're just going to mix them all in and then...
Well, so there'll be like 2 that are the first type, and then there'll be 2 that are second type. You just need to notice the directions. One will say find the value of x, and it'll have the arrows on the diagram, Larson. And the other one will say find the value of x that makes them parallel. There are no arrows. Okay? So, let's write if corresponding angles are congruent, then we've got parallel lines. That gets you the other 2 points. So there's a 4 out of 4.
These like sentences in the
If you get the corresponding part correct, but you did the converse of it, so you flipped it, I will only take off 1 point. So then you would have 3 out of 4 points instead of 4 out of 4. Yeah, so that's a 75 as opposed to a 50, right? Okay, so now let's get the rest of them in. Again, if you want the abbreviated versions, they're up here on the right side of the board, or if you want to do the word versions, they're up here on the PowerPoint. So alternate interior angles, converse. If alternate interior angles,
Why are you writing so much?
just do the abbreviated versions that are up there on the side of the board.
All of them?
Sure.
No, what one is it?
Well, we're on alternate interior right now.
Oh, it's like the second one.
Yeah. So if alternate interior angles are congruent, then we have parallel lines. So alternate exterior, if alternate exterior angles are congruent,
Yeah, no, we do.
you guys getting this?
Yeah.
If alternate exterior angles are congruent, then lines are parallel.
Oh wait, whoa, we're on a different one?
Yes.
Oh, that is so
They're up there on the right side of the board also. Consecutive interior angles, if consecutive interior angles are supplementary, then lines are parallel.
I'm so done with school already.
Okay, so when you have that done, flip onto the back so I know you're ready.
The last one was alt.
You went back one on accident.
That was exterior. You didn't do it. No.
You went back one on accident.
Am I mixed up?
Yes.
Okay.
If alternate exterior angles are congruent, then lines are parallel.
That's this. No, I know I
Interior.
messed up on this one.
Oh,
The
yeah.
one that we did like first was this one, right? Yeah, I
Yes.
have the first one. I did the second one.
So it's the same thing as that one, just use in exterior instead of interior, Angelica. So alternate exterior angles are congruent. Then lines are parallel. Oops.
Oh jeez. That was a laptop.
All right, are we ready?
Can you go to the consecutive?
Can you go back to the first one real quick?
They're all on the board right there.
Yeah, but like, I want the longer version.
The corresponding one?
Yeah.
So if corresponding angles are congruent,
Yeah.
then lines are parallel.
Go back to the first one. Right? That was the first one. You gave
Yeah.
it. Yeah. That was the first one.
All right, so here we go. Let's do a proof. Hopefully you have your T-chart set up. Statements on the left, reasons on the right.
What, Nicholas? You look like Nicolas Cage.
So, statements, reasons. What do we always start with?
Start with the given.
So we're given that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. Yep. All right, so I want to prove that two lines are cut by a transversal, so alternate interior angles are congruent. So we want to prove why, if alternate interior angles are congruent, my lines are parallel. So what do we know for sure 2 is also congruent to? 3. Why? Vertical angles. So line 2. Gentlemen.
We're at the same point.
Angle 2 is congruent to angle 3. My if-then statement would be if vertical angles, then congruent. So if 1's congruent to 2 and 2's congruent to 3, yes, vertical. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. Why? Transitive property. Gentlemen, you're being very annoying right now.
Whoa. O'Doyle rules.
So now, 1 and 3 are what type of angle?
I can't see.
It's on your paper. Not alternate exterior. Corresponding. So if corresponding angles are congruent, what's true? Then they're going to be parallel. So that means I can finish with my prove line. So M is parallel to N. Yep, so if corresponding angles congruent, then parallel lines. So remember, really pay close attention to this. Whenever you write an if-then statement, your conclusion should match up directly to the statement that you are writing on the same line. So my conclusion is saying I have parallel lines. So that means over here I need to say what those parallel lines are. Up here in our vertical angles, I said I had congruent angles. So make sure over here you're stating what congruent angles there are that are vertical. Okay? All right. On to the next. So these are 4 pointers on the quiz on Friday. Just like this. Find the value of x that makes R parallel to S. What type of angles do we have? Not corresponding. Not alternate interior. Consecutive. Yep, because they're on the same side of the transversal. What's true about consecutive interiors? They need to be supplementary. So that means I'm going to add them together and equal them to 180. Because you have been talking this whole entire time that I am talking, and it's very rude. I don't care. You can talk about math when I am done talking. 2x plus x combines to make 3x equals 180.
60.
So x is equal to 60. That gets you 2 out of your 4 points. Your other 2 points are going to come from picking the correct if-then statement. Good. So if consecutive interior angles sup, because they are sup, then parallel. That would work. 4 out of 4. 100%. What about the next one? What are we going to do? Those are alternate interior. What do alternate interior angles need to be?
Third one.
Congruent, right? So we're going to set them equal to each other.
Wait, what did you get?
Alternate interior angles are congruent, then lines are parallel. So if these are congruent, then my lines will be parallel. So x equals 20.
X equals 20.
Subtract 2x.
1x equals 20. X equals 20.
Okay. Now what's the if then?
Interior angle congruent and parallel.
Good. Okay. So again, you've got 2 options. Right away, you should be identifying those as alternate interior. And that's going to be half the battle. Then the next battle is going to be, okay, I need to write an if-then statement about alternate interior angles and parallel lines. This is the correct version. If you do the converse and say if parallel lines and alternate interior angles are congruent, then you'll get 3 out of the 4 total points because you didn't have the right statement, but you did name the right angles. Okay, but pay close attention to the directions. Here it's asking you what would make them be parallel. So you should conclude that they're parallel. All right, let's finish with the last proof.
I have a question.
What?
Can you write it the lazy way, or do you want us to write it the long way for the test or quiz? I mean,
If you do it like that, that's fine. Like what you just put. Yeah. All right, set up your T-chart.
Kai has a Mercedes, isn't he red?
You did this over here.
I know that, I already said that.
Okay.
wait, what?
Statements on the left. Reasons on the right. There is a typo on your page. I think I fixed it on mine. It should be 1 and 2. There is no 3 in that diagram. Sorry about that. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 2 is our given.
Okay.
And we need to prove that 5 and 7 are supplementary. Now let's think backwards. If these are supplementary, what type of angle should they be? Consecutive interior. Are they consecutive interior if those lines are parallel?
Heck yeah.
So, in order to say that they're supplementary, I need to show that I have parallel lines. Well, I need to show I have parallel lines first. So 1 and 2 are what type of angles? Corresponding, right? Lower left of the group of 4s. So 1 and 2 are corresponding angles. Did we say that they're congruent?
No. Yes, we did.
So if my corresponding angles are congruent, what can I conclude?
Parallel.
What's parallel? Which lines?
1 and 2.
No, which lines?
The lines.
A and
Oh, I didn't see those.
B,
That's
right? So I'm going to say that A is parallel to B. Now I have to get the right if-then statement. So remember, this is my conclusion. So my then should be parallel. So that means my if should be talking about what this is. Well, what is that? Corresponding angles. So if corresponding angles congruent, then parallel lines. Okay, well now I have parallel lines. So now I'm jumping to this side of the board. If I end up with parallel lines, what's true about consecutive interior angles? They're supplementary. So which angles up there are my consecutive interior angles? Not 1 and 2, they were corresponding. 5 and 7 were my consecutive interior. So now can I conclude that they're supplementary?
Yes, you can.
Yes, I can. So this is a 3-stepper. So now rewrite your prove line. Angle 5 and angle 7 are supplementary. Feel free to just write sup. Now all I need to do is get the correct if-then statement over there. So what did we talk about in the previous step? We talked about parallel lines, so that should be in my hypothesis. So if parallel lines, good. Then consecutive interior angles are sup. And then we proved it. Okay, is that the last one? Okay, so here is what you're